What's up out there? We are back with some more Path of Exile, and I've watched a number of videos since I've started playing Path of Exile, different build guides talking about, all these really cool looking things that I watch, and I'm like, these are kind of not obtainable for me the way that I play. I play SSF. Even if I'm in Trade League, I still play as if I'm in SSF. I might use the currency exchange or something like that, but I don't trade for gear. I would prefer to acquire my own gear, craft my own gear, that kind of thing. So when I see something like an armor stacker, I'm like, that looks awesome. I did try to pursue one league, and then I realized exactly how much effort it was going to be to get. And it would be something that if I ever did put an armor stacker together, it would be something I did in like standard, where I've just got all the gear that I've collected over the years and have whatever I get as I piece things together. It's not really something I would necessarily do in a league unless I get really good and can get through things fairly quickly and go and acquire all the stuff that I need. But I've watched a lot of videos, thought there was a lot of really cool builds. And, even though I've tried doing some of these, I've never actually gotten to the point where I could get one built. I watched Surgeon General's video today talking about using Bladefall of Charthus with certain uniques and a Juggernaut and getting some certain interactions going. And I said, man, I can do that because I have a level 91 Juggernaut already ready to go. This is my crit Jug that I showed off in a few videos ago. I also have all the uniques because they're fairly common uniques and I get them every league, as well as the skill gem that is needed. So here is my Temu at home rendition of what he was talking about. Now, I will link his video below if you're interested in watching it. Definitely go watch that. That's going to explain everything far better than I will. There's a lot cooler ideas on that than what I've got. This is kind of a basic Cyclone build trying this out. What he had talked about was using Cyclone with Cast One channeling and a transfigured version of Discharge. I don't have that transfigured version of Discharge. What I did is I sat down and spent a couple of hours to get to the point where I'm at, and I had to make a lot of tweaks to the build. Like, for instance, I was using a two-handed axe. I had to switch over to and whip out this. I just had a one-handed axe sitting in my inventory. I threw an essence on it, tossed this increased damage, fizz damage on it, the craft, and then threw all the uniques on here and kind of messed around with my passive tree, trying to see what I could do with this. So the gist of this, if you go into the passive tree, the whole point of the build is to generate endurance charges quickly. So you want to make sure and take unflinching. So you get 30% chance to gain an endurance charge when hit, and then 25% chance that if you would gain endurance charges, you instead gain up to maximum. You also get +1 to maximum on this one. You also want to take inexorable, so you get another 25% chance to gain an endurance charge when you're hit. So that's 55% to gain an endurance charge when you're hit, with another 25% to get maximum. So that's basically the ascendancy node you need and the passive tree node you need. Then you need to have the Bladefall of Charthus. Now this starts the chain reaction. Basically, this thing, once activated, continuously spends mana to cause volleys of ethereal weapons to rain down, blah, 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 blah. Basically, this thing continuously spends mana. Once you turn it on, your mana starts dropping. So you need to have mana recoup, mana regen, things like that to counteract what's going over here, mana leech, all that kind of stuff. That is the go button. Once you get into a map and you start run that, it starts the engine. The engine being Skold's Bridle. Now this, your skills deal you 400% of mana spent on upfront skill mana costs as physical damage. So this is a spell, Bladefall of Charthus is a spell that continuously spends mana, which then interacts with this Skold's Bridle to continuously do damage to you, which then generates endurance charges because you gain endurance charge when you're hit and you have a chance to gain max charges. So that's the engine. That's the whole thing that you're trying to get going, is that setup right there. Now, the next thing you want to do is, if you choose to do this part of it, is to put the Eternal Apple on, which is this shield on over here. This will trigger a socketed Warcry on skill losing endurance charges with a little bit of a cooldown, and then later on down the line here, you lose all endurance charges on reaching maximum endurance charges. So you want to hit max endurance charges as fast as possible. This thing will then start charging, using Warcries. It will start calling off Warcries, and then you lose all your endurance charges. So While you've got the engine going, this is continuously using war cries and expending all of your endurance charges. The next thing you want to have is this King's Guard, so that you gain 100 life when you lose an endurance charge. So the more often you're losing endurance charges, and what he showed in his video was like, I don't know, 150 or some crazy number a second or something like that. I don't know what I'm at with this. It's very basic. I need to have more max endurance charges. Like I've got +5 now because you start off with +3 and you gain 1 max endurance charge there. So that should be 4. Wonder why I don't have 6, because there's 1 there and there's 1 there. So I should have 6. I think it's 5 that I've got. Well, whatever. So I guess maybe I'm not seeing the 6 because it's getting taken away before I can see it. I do see 5 regularly. But anyway, once this engine is going, all the self-damage you're taking just keeps generating endurance charges. The war cries and all that stuff use the endurance charges off and burn them away. And then you get an enormous amount of life regen off of this. Now, at one point, I did see on my defensive side here, my life regen, where are we at? Life regen right now is 853. At one point, this was at like 2,600. Now, I've made some changes to my build and I've adjusted things. So whatever it was doing 2,600 is not necessarily where I'm at currently. I don't know what I had to make it better. This was my crit build, so I had to pull out all the crit stuff and go into some different things. At some point, I realized I was still into my two-handed weapons with martial experience and kinetic impact, so I had to take all that out and retool things. That's why I'm over here into like strong arm for one-handed damage or one-handed weapon damage. I still have the wrong anoint on. I was in and out of slaughter. Like I've gone into a variety of different things. I did try the regular version of discharge, so I was over into lava lash for a minute to gain some fire damage. But as you can see, I've moved around and changed quite a bit around on this. In fact, I'm over here into assured strike now for the increased strike range, make my AoE a little bit bigger. But let's go see this thing in action. And I'm going to warn you right up front, the damage sucks on this. I need to. What I really, you know what I didn't show off either is I'm running Infernal Cry, Intimidating Cry, and Enduring Cry. Now I know that War Cries do not exert Cyclone. I already know that. Like I know how that works. But I need to take the endurance charges off. So I think that, well, I need to do some more testing on that and see. I know I need to have at least 1 War Cry in there, and for the 1, it's going to be Infernal Cry. The interesting thing, you'll notice things will pop and explode every once in a while. They just poof off into existence. That's Combust doing its explode. I don't know why that kicks off for Cyclone, but it does. I don't know what I'm using that actually exerts, but if we go out here and we look at Infernal Cry, performs a war cry taunting enemies to attack the user and exerting subsequent attacks. The user and nearby allies gains a buff that a portion of their physical damage is extra fire damage. In addition to being taunted, enemies are inflicted with a secondary debuff, causing them to explode when they die, dealing fire damage in an area. So the secondary debuff is what I'm not sure how it's getting there. When you use Combust, it actually, I don't understand it because it doesn't exert, the war cries can't exert Cyclone, but somehow, some way, Combust gets put on things and you'll see stuff just poof out of existence when you hit them. You'll just see a whole bunch of enemies explode. That is the Combust. That's that going off. We haven't started the engine yet, so let's see here. Defensively, we're doing, let's just watch this. We're not doing the war cries. So I guess, oh no, we're not doing the self-damage. So we're still getting our war cries, but we're not getting as, recharging our endurance charges. So we turn the engine on. Now it's starting to recharge our endurance charges a lot. And yeah, I guess our regen is not as tied to the, it's not as tied to the war cries as I thought it was. I'm still trying to understand how all this stuff's put together. And the damage sucks. You know, I know this needs a lot more damage. But I thought it was pretty cool. And this is something that I could actually just put together. I can go test. I can throw slam skills on here. Like, yeah, see all that poof that just happened? That is combust going off. That's not anything that I've got, because Cyclone, the way that I've got my build set up, Cyclone just does damage to what it hits. It doesn't make anything explode. What would explode is something using my Chieftain build, which I don't have. Like, this is not a Chieftain, so it's not taking advantage of that. Yeah, see, that stuff poofed a few times. So somehow, some way, Combust is kicking off. But I don't know, whatever. I think it's pretty cool. I'm getting 1,000 regen off of this. 1,400. I mean, it bounces all over the place. And what I don't really get is I haven't died. Like, I've taken a lot of damage for sure. And I've watched my health bar go up and down, like, massively. But once I got this thing really going and, like, actually working, I haven't died. I don't know if it's something to do with how fast the endurance charges are coming. So, like with my Berserker build, I constantly have 5 endurance charges. So they're always up. They're always there. And I don't have to worry about not having endurance charges, but I don't have the amount of life regen that I have with this, and I don't have the survivability. So I'm not sure if the endurance charge is coming up and down so fast. Like I can just stand here. I'm still getting 1,500 life regen. I'm not doing anything. I can turn all this stuff back on. There's 1,900 regen. I think the higher regen comes from just sitting on a monster. You know, something like this, it's got a lot of HP, because there's 1,900 again. But, yeah. I think this is awesome. I can't wait to see what else I can do with this and tinker around with it. Like, I'd love to see what Discharge does, you know, fully tweaked out, see what I could get going with that. I don't know. I think this is really cool. It's been a lot of fun tinkering with. And like I said, being able to watch somebody's video that's got some really weird interaction that, you know, you wouldn't think of, and then to just have all the gear and be able to put it together is actually really cool. Now, again, I know this isn't doing nearly as much damage as it should be, and it could certainly be a lot better build, but it's been really cool to be able to get this interaction to work, and a lot of fun to try out. So if you're interested in it, watch the video down below. It's a great video. There's a lot of really cool ideas in there, and I think I saw him put a post on Reddit talking about it. So it's like the new hotness or whatever, but glad to have tried it out. I'm going to tinker around with this a little bit more and see what I can do with it, see if there's any other cool interactions I can muster up with it, or just, I don't know, try the transfigured version of Discharge and see what that does, see if I can actually get some damage out of it. But at any rate, that's going to do it for this video. We will catch you on the next one. Take care.